City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded July 1st, 2020.
Yeah, 6:30. Good evening, everybody. The July 1st, 2020 Park Board Commissioners meeting will come to order. Dan, would you please read the roll?
You bet. Freckman? Gladowski? Hall? Kirsch? McDonald?
Here.
O'Connick is here. Shabilsky?
Here.
Perfect. Shore?
Here.
Slawinski is excused. Sorensen?
Here.
And Zarazua.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. All right. Item number 2, the approval of the June 3rd, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? I think I see Sue raising her hand. Okay, Sue's made a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Mike's got a second there.
Okay. All right. It's moved in a seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay. Item number 3, tournament play within the City of Stevens Point Park facilities and properties. I'm assuming everyone has reviewed their agenda notes, but Dan, if you could take a few minutes and kind of summarize what the agenda notes tell us regarding this item.
Absolutely. So last month, the Park Commission, the motion included allowing Stevens Point teams to play within Stevens Point, as well as the surrounding, ultimately bordering counties in the Wisconsin River Valley Conference. And the last part of the motion included any tournament play requiring to come before this Park Commission for approval. Given that the time that's changed now, as we know, the environment continues to change, we're at a point, you'll see later in the agenda, we have a couple tournament requests that have come in. I wanted to recap what we've discovered and been informed of through the health department, as well as some of the things that we've taken into consideration. So essentially reaching out, talking with the Portage County Health Department, they made us aware that the Wisconsin Department of Health has placed Portage County in the high COVID activity level. There was a link in the packet that you could actually select that showed each county in the state. And that high COVID activity level is what led the Portage County Health Department to provide guidance. Again, they're not enforceable hard, fast rules. It's guidance in which they recommend that this time tournament play not be advised in Portage County or in the City of Stevens Point. They pointed to elements that inviting visitors from outside the county into the county, as well as protecting those that live within the county from maybe people that are traveling from other COVID activities. Kind of the two primary reasonings for that recommendation. In addition, some other elements that play a role when you think about it is there is Executive Order 1 out that is about the 50-person maximum, and number of tournaments, as we know, if families travel with the athletes or people that are in the activity, the 50 people maximum can obviously be achieved in a very big hurry. So the reason that the agenda was set the way it is tonight is I wanted to have and ask the Park Commission for some general guidance. How we've been handling these requests as the phones that have rung or have come in is we've told people or event organizers, athletic event organizers, that right now any tournament must come before the Park Commission. Now that we're sort of at that midway point in the summer, the first 2 are here before the committee tonight, but we're going to have others that are likely to be asked of in the month of July and August and as we go into the fall. What I'm looking for from the Park Commission is under the current guidelines that we've seen and received from the Portage County Health Department, I wanted to ask the Park Commission if at this point staff should continue to ultimately say no to tournaments, or if there's modified approaches that we should allow. One of the difficult, tricky things we have as staff is some of the ideas and organizers have some really creative solutions. You know, could we do, let's use I'm just going to use one, for example, like if Fred's on the call tonight, like horseshoes. Maybe that's a little bit more easily modified athletic activity than maybe softball. However, where it gets tricky for us is there's a lot of different scenarios. And if one is allowed to be able to have a tournament, it's difficult to say no to another. So all of that kind of factors into me asking as staff and us as staff asking to the Park Commission, are we at a point where we believe under our current situation and circumstances, we should move forward with no tournament play unless there's a substantial change from either our environment in Portage County or from the health department? Or are you desirous of us to still bring each one of these to the Park Commission? And that's why it landed on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Dan. Discussion among the commissioners. Anyone have any comments or questions about this? Statements? Anything you'd like to say about it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hard decisions being made everywhere right now. If you listen to the news, it's more cases every day. And if you hear stories about people who've had the virus, who have had loved ones who died from it, it's real and hasn't impacted us to a large degree here, which is, I think, a good thing. But like Dan said, we're being listed as a pretty hot spot. So, I over the last couple of weeks, obviously, become much more concerned about it. And, why is it continuing to spread? Well, it's because of people still getting together, restaurants are opened, things like that. So I'm definitely more concerned than I was last time we met.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else? Makira.
Thank you. I think too, just the fact that tournaments are something that brings people to the area, and we just want to minimize that. Not because we're antisocial, but we just, at the moment, we just don't need any reasons for people to want to come to the area. Unfortunately, it's opposite to everything we believe in as, city officials. But right now we just need to try to limit that contact. So I would be opposed to having tournaments, unfortunately. And it hurts to say it every time we are turning things down. So I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sue?
Yes, I agree with her that it is difficult to turn these down. However, we don't know who is the outside people that are coming in and where they're coming in from, maybe relatives from other states. And so that's the biggest problem that I think that I've had with that.
Any other comments?
I wanted to say, yeah, the conflict is high for myself as well. I love sports and I love games in general, and just having to say that you don't support it's very tough. I'd say that.
Well, I know this really does fly in the face of what we try to do as a park board, but this year is really different from any other. So
I think Bob has his hand up as well, Chairperson McDowell.
okay, I didn't see him. Sorry about that, Bob.
And Bob, you're muted, so you're gonna have to click the button in the bottom corner.
Bob, did you want to say
according to the screen, I just muted rather than unmuted, so I don't know which way that's going.
We can hear you, so it's working.
So it's working. Okay, even though it says I muted. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, it seems to me that the only logical thing to do was first to follow a recommendation, and secondly, it's a practical thing. We only meet once a month. We can't get together on short notice. I think it's far better just simply to follow the health recommendations and let that be the policy. I don't see any alternative.
Okay, David, did you have David?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, it's picking up on what Bob said about meetings. It's certainly, I don't think, fair to put these decisions onto staff. So I wouldn't feel good about that option. But the Horseshoe tournament a softball tournament of teams is sort of easy to say. That's hard to make work. You get tempted. Could the Horseshoe, just the competitors come without spectators? But I do take this point about, how hard it gets to say yes to some things and no to others. And the only other thing I would say in terms of, one piece of this is definitely about, people moving around to different parts of the state and and the virus moving with them. But I would only add that here in Portage County, like, our own numbers are very concerning. So, just guard against the idea that the problem would be coming here from somewhere else. The movement and the number is just, is exactly the kind of thing that starts before things go very, very south the way, that we're seeing in the Arizonas and Texases. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I'm not really able to see everybody. So Dan, if you can help me on this, does anyone else have any comments on this?
I think
regarding item number 3, the general tournament.
Mike has his hand up.
Oh, Mike did. Okay, Mike.
I just, so that's kind of what I was asking. I mean, is it just this, and then we're going to deal with each one individually? These are tough decisions. I played softball for a lot of years, and you hate to say no. But on the other hand, I mean, I think, we got to look out for, the entire community too, in these decisions. And so, yeah, it's really tough. And, I think we tried to, last month at least get, where the locals people could go out and play on a limited basis. And it's concerning though. I guess that's it.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, anyone else?
Commissioner Kirsch had his hand up for a second too.
Oh, Matt.
No, I'm good. I'm sorry. I was just...
Okay. I think one of the key things here is that we need to be looking at that the tournament play is not advised at this current time, according to the Portage County Health Department. So, I mean, I think one of the things about tournaments is you are bringing other people in. And as someone pointed out, it's not just that we're facing people that are coming in, but they have to come into Portage County too. And our latest number was 147 confirmed cases on tonight. So it's not good. Well, okay. I guess what we probably should be doing on this then is, do we want to get a motion here to define what we will be doing regarding tournaments, no tournaments, or what is your pleasure, people?
Like David said, maybe the motion should be that we look at this again in August, because it is such an evolving, changing situation. But that we move to not allow tournaments until the August meeting, and we can reassess at that time. What do you think?
So would that be a motion to not allow tournaments through August 5th?
Yes.
And then reassess at that time. Is that what you're saying, Matt?
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly that holds up.
We need a second though. We need a second.
I'd second it.
All right, Micah seconded it. Okay, then Dave, you had some comments?
I mean, I guess the spirit of taking that approach is to hold out hope. And
It's a little bit of kicking the can down the road.
being, having hope is a good thing, right? It is hard to see that that things are going to change over in the right direction in a clear enough fashion that we'll be able to open up or consider those possibilities then. I think that the chair's highlighting the health department advice is maybe one of the most important things here, right? That the health department is saying, don't do it. And listening to them is probably, really the right way to go. And so this is just a question of whether we want to kind of cross our fingers that things will look better in a month.
Okay, is there any? Go ahead.
Commissioner Bilski
Yeah.
has his hand up.
Who did?
If you can see
Commissioner
me.
Shabil.
Oh, there you go.
I
There you go,
don't know
Sean,
how
sorry.
good my lighting is in here. I don't know. Is it worth getting input from any of the tournament directors or representatives that are on the call to see if maybe it would be more helpful to them from a planning perspective to just say, no, I don't. I mean, we can kick the can down the road, like Dave said, but do they want to hold out hope, or would they rather be able to look at their planning and say, I don't think stuff's going to change by August 5th. And rather than hold people on the line with travel plans, things like that, I mean, would it be appropriate at this point to get input, or should we wait till the later agenda items?
Well, they are addressed specifically. The two tournaments that are being requested are addressed specifically later on. So I don't know. My thought would be to wait and let's see what happens with those individual items. Otherwise, or Dan, do you have a different thought on that?
I guess ultimately, so the motion is just to revisit it August 5th. So I guess if the board is considering a different motion, I think it would be worthwhile if there's no more comments on that motion, maybe voting on it and then decide if let's just say it would fail, a second motion could be entertained. So I guess it can go a couple directions. The two tournament directors that are on the call will have their own follow-up, but obviously this motion will impact probably what those next actions are. So I think letting them speak, probably there's no harm in that either.
So, okay, so we could let them speak if they want to. All right, let's see. That would be Matt Disher. Matt, did you want to say anything in regard to where we are with this right now?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and I completely agree with the fact that we're a hot spot right now. I guess where we were getting at with what our request was to be able to deal without, just because of what it takes for us to plan this, to be able to work with Dan and the health department to be able to say, okay, we can run this thing. I mean, depending on the amount of teams, if you go based on the amount of teams we had last year, I mean, we're looking at probably 400 to 500 people at a ballpark if everybody's there. Now, granted, they're not all going to be there at one time, but there's a good possibility that everybody is there. We had 36 teams last year. We're open for 40 or more this year. So that's at a minimum 10 players per team, plus fans, plus subs that they bring. So what our request was more or less to say, if the health department at some point says you can have 500, 600 people at a park, then we could run it. I understand it's probably not going to happen, but at least working with Dan and the health department, if it changed, let's say mid-August, that we could plan it knowing that this is going to change and we wouldn't have to wait to come back to the Parks Commission.
Okay, thank you. Fred, did you have any comments?
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, yep, my name's Fred Lane. I'm the president of the Stevens Point Horseshoe Club. I guess my only comment would be just to ask that you guys just consider events or competitions. And I guess in their own merit, I understand that you guys have a tough job, and I understand, things are getting very serious with the county becoming more of a hot spot, and definitely things happening around the United States. I would just want to touch base a little bit on the competition in general, how it's ran, and a little bit about my experience. I've attended 3 horseshoe tournaments this year already. Most recently this past weekend up in Mosinee, and they had a full schedule. They had up to 48 people there, so all of them ran with participants from around the state. The majority being local, but they didn't turn any competitors away, and then they did have a all the social distancing and that type of thing in place, guidelines and additional measures just to ensure everyone's safety. So I would only ask that before you guys make a motion, just to completely throw tournaments out for the month, just to hear out a little bit from me, and basically just how the tournaments ran and what we would do as far as measures. It's a very, very small, at most there's only 8 competitors pitching at a time. Maybe there's eight participants, or excuse me, 8 spectators as well. So at one time at the Horseshoe pitch, which is an outdoor facility, which, they're canceling, or they're closing down bars and all of these indoor places, because these are the more severe areas where this virus is spread. So being that we're outdoors, and you've got other things going on, like I know you guys may revisit this or not, but just the lodges and things like that you guys rent with the cap of 50 of the guidelines. So you do have I don't know if they're wedding receptions, I don't know if they're birthday parties, but there's no control over who comes to those, regardless outside or what social distancing guidelines that group would bring, or who would enforce that. But me, being the tournament director, we are going to have very strict guidelines and things like that. And the tournament is so very small, with only 8 people pitching at a time, and maybe eight spectators at one time. And when one class gets done, they move out and leave and go home, and there's 8 more that come in. And the nature of the sport in general, horseshoe pitching, there's no shared equipment. Everyone brings their own horseshoes. The horseshoe pits are spaced 6 feet apart. And then, you can compete for 2.5 hours in one class and not touch each other. So, I mean, it is 100% non-contact. So it's not like any other sport. So, there's a few other things I'd touch base on, but, just to get my point across, I would just ask that you guys, instead of throwing tournaments out or competitions completely, just to quite possibly maybe consider looking at each one individually.
Thank you, Fred. All right, any other comments from?
I think Matt wants to say something.
Okay. Matt, yes.
I would tend to agree with Fred. I know, just due to the nature of our sport compared to Fred's, I think being that there's 2 on the docket, to cancel everything for the month with just 2 on the docket, I mean, I can't propose, but I would say I would think you guys could just vote on the 2 events in front of you, knowing that in order to get another event there, it would have to go before the Parks Commission again, and they don't meet until August anyway.
I would say, thanks guys for that. You have that many people playing disc golf at the park, 16 people. I mean, that's not a lot of people. I think if you just had your horseshoe tournament you play it over at Mead Park, correct?
Yep, right across the river.
Yeah, I mean, if you had 16 people throwing horseshoes around, I mean.
And it's really only 8, and then there's 8 people just watching.
Right. So you have that many people playing disc golf at any time, anywhere. Not to mention other, playgrounds and stuff like that.
Sure.
So
Fred,
that's a good point not to throw at all tournaments. So.
Fred, where do the competitors come from?
Yeah,
Is it all through the state?
Yeah, that's a great question. So being that I participated in 3 tournaments leading up to this, I do try to recruit, and I do try to get early signups as much as I can just to prepare for the tournament. So currently I have about 30 competitors. The majority of them do fall pretty local. So it's minimum, so I've got a guy from Medford, a couple from Wapaka, up far. I've got 2 coming from Eagle River up north, a couple from Medford, 6 from Wisconsin Rapids, 5 from Mosinee, Junction City, Butternut, that's a little further north yet, a couple from Chippewa Falls. But for the most part, the majority are local, but there are a handful that do come from around the state, but it's to a minimum compared to the whole of 48.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any further discussion on this, on the motion that we have right now?
If I may.
Yes, Dave.
Thank you. So we got an answer to your good question about the feeling about holding up on the possibility, even if it's a low possibility, and I guess we all understand that. Maybe a useful dividing line can be drawn between team and individual sports. Maybe that helps give some clarity as a potential kind of amendment to this. But if I could hear Dan talk a little bit more about his view on letting some things happen and not others, whether that's uncomfortable. And I also wanted to raise, in other committees and decision-making bodies of the city and the council, special meetings are convened, right? So, and that has to do, I think, less with anything, conditions changing, and more with our ability, maybe using this individual versus team sports distinction, but if there was a really compelling reason to hold a special meeting of the board, I'd certainly be open to that. I mean, I don't see anything that says we can't come together until August 4th, is I guess what I'm saying. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Mike, yes.
Yeah, maybe a way to make this better is to put that 50-person maximum, on an event. It would give something like Horseshoes a chance where 30-team softball tournament really wouldn't meet those wouldn't make that requirement.
Okay.
Can I? Why don't I
Yes, David.
Can I try to offer an amendment? An amendment saying that we will not be considering events larger than 50.
Tournaments or events?
Oh, well.
Tournaments in this case, right?
Okay, in this discussion, tournaments. I would be comfortable saying that for events more broadly, but what we're deciding right now, tournaments.
We need a second, Chairperson McDonald.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that amendment to the motion? Matt, you're seconding it? Okay.
Yeah, we need both the person who made the motion and the seconder of the motion to say
that it's okay. All right. Let's see.
The motion was made by Kirsch, and then Mike is who seconded the original motion.
Okay. Do you agree with that amendment, Matt and Mike?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now on the floor, then we have the original motion, but we now have an amendment to the motion. The amendment would be to not consider tournaments larger than 50, and that's all I have written. So at this time, maybe could be at the end. I don't know if that was part of that motion or not, Aldershort.
He's shaking his head. Yeah, okay.
So by procedure, when you do call for a vote, we'll have to vote on the amendment first and then the motion as amended.
All right, let's see, the amendment, you want to read that amendment, please?
Sure. So the amendment to the motion would be to not consider tournaments larger than 50 people at this time.
Okay, let's have a vote on that. Should we do a voice vote or a roll call vote?
I can do a roll call if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, let's do roll call. It's too difficult otherwise with this. Okay, roll call.
Okay. So if you're muted, you're going to have to unmute here. Freckman,
Aye.
Kladowski,
Aye.
Hall,
I
Kirsch,
Aye.
McDonald,
Aye.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Shabilsky,
Aye.
Shore,
Aye.
Sorensen,
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Okay, so the amendment passes. So the motion as amended now is to not allow tournaments larger than 50 people at this time. That would still need a vote.
Okay, do we need a definition at this time?
I don't think so. I think if
Okay.
something would change, we could bring it back.
All right, let's have a roll call vote on that as well.
All right. Kladowski,
Aye.
Hall, I'm going to say that's a aye. You're muted, Sue. Is it aye? Thumbs up? Okay. Kirsch,
Aye.
McDonald,
Aye.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Shabilsky,
Aye.
Shore,
Aye.
Sorensen,
Aye.
Zarazua,
Aye.
Freckman.
Aye.
10-0 passes.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, 2020 State Softball Tournament request by Stevens Point Softball Association. What was the date on that one again? What was the date that they were proposing?
Matt had a couple. I'll defer to him.
Okay,
It would have been either July 31st through August 2nd, or it would be the weekend after that, which would be, I don't even know, 8th through the 10th,
okay,
maybe.
all right, thank you. All right, you had information in your notes, in your agenda notes. Either Matt or Dan, do you want to address it any further? Or Dan, you want to enlarge upon this?
I guess I'll let Matt talk to the numbers. I think he referenced it a little bit in the last agenda item, but
Yeah.
essentially what's in the meeting packet is a request to either permit the tournament or allow staff, my position, myself, to work with Matt in the health department to later approve it. But based on the earlier discussion, I think, Matt, you probably want to speak to the numbers and we can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, even at a small end, we're probably, even on a small tournament, we're 200 to 300 people. On the large end, we're at 400 to 500 people. So, for me, my request would have been to be able to work with Dan in the health department in case the number changes. So right now there's a limit, but if the health department either removed that limit or expanded that limit, that instead of coming back to the park board, the decision could be made by Dan and the health department to let me go forward.
Chair Liz?
Yes, who was that? Sorry.
It's John.
Okay, John, sorry.
Question for your numbers, Matt, you were mentioning for the tournament. Is that at one site or is that throughout the city? You're looking at 300 to 400 people.
It would be at Zena Park. So it's 3 fields, which.
Okay, but one general facility, one area. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, I have a question. How far down the road could you look at dates? Because part of the reason, and I understand what you're asking, Parks Board is not going to meet till August, but how big a window do you have to reschedule this thing?
My latest window would be that second weekend in August, just because of teams that need travel plans to go to national tournaments. The national tournaments are only a few that have been canceled, but a lot of them are still on, and they need to make plans to travel to North Dakota, Indiana, Missouri. There's a couple different ones.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alder Shore has his hand up.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. This just feels like too big a decision to delegate. I would rather convene a special meeting than delegate the decision.
Okay, other comments? Other discussion from the board? I don't know if we're expecting a miracle in the next few weeks, but the numbers keep going up. I mean, it's 5 higher today than it was yesterday in Portage County. I don't see how there's going to be a change that's going to be significant enough, as much as I hate to say it, because this is a big deal. This tournament is a big deal. And I just don't see how this is going to be able to happen. I mean, the number of people that we're talking about, it just, whatever. Mike, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to ask Matt how the leagues are going so far. As are people distancing out there? You've started a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah. For the most part, teams stick together at the park. Just kind of like when I talk to at the health department, teams stick together. That's kind of like family. But for the most part, we haven't seen anybody shaking hands, high-fiving. After games, people kind of sit by themselves if they want to watch a couple games, but they're not by everybody else. The teams themselves have been separating themselves pretty good.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Matt, sorry.
Alder Zarazua has her hand up.
Okay, yes, Kira.
I just want to reiterate what Alder Shore said, that, as on Common Council, it's not unusual for us to have a special meeting. So by some miracle, if COVID disappears next week, I think it's easy enough I can wish, stop laughing. I think it's easy enough for us to say, let's call a meeting, plus it's by Zoom, to, reconsider this request.
Or if Stevens Point suddenly becomes like the central test bed of testing and tracing, and like thousands and thousands of tests and tracing.
Does having a special meeting on this down the road require a motion?
No, but I think it would be worth telling, because their request is to asking permission this evening. So I guess you can take no action on it. We would not, if no action's taken, it would not be permitted through our office right now. It could stay like that. We could come back later, or it could be at this time, until further notice or a future meeting, the request could be denied. You could take it a couple different ways.
I will make a motion then to deny the request until a special meeting arises, until the situation changes and we can have a special meeting.
Okay, any second on that motion?
I'll second it.
That was John O'Connick, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
We can probably do this one by voice vote, yeah?
Sure. Dave or Dan, would you just read that back then?
You bet. The motion is to deny the softball tournament request until the situation changes regarding COVID-19 and a special meeting can be held.
Okay. Great. Let's have a vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it sounds like the motion carried 10-1. So thank you. Sorry, Matt. Hopefully we can. Hopefully we can do this next year.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Item number 5, tournament request by Stevens Point Horseshoe Club for July 18th and 19th in Mead Park.
So I can recap this, and obviously we also have Fred on the call. But as was mentioned earlier, they are under the 50-person advisement in terms of numbers. They do have a plan that was submitted as part of the packet for social distancing. They are seeking approval for their dates, which, Fred, correct me here, I'm missing it on my paper. Is he still with us?
Yeah, it's July 18th and 19th.
I mean, I'm persuaded that the nature of the sport and how it runs, and I mean, my only concern would be if more people were like really crowded around along the sidelines and around the pits. But as it was described, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Fred, just out of curiosity, I was planning an event myself. How do you feel planning an event right now, just yourself?
I feel comfortable, I guess, at this point, I guess, with just the social distancing guidelines and just participating in 3 horseshoe tournaments earlier this year. All while, of course, coronavirus and things like that has been developing and whatnot. So I think just with the measures that these tournament directors and tournaments put in place, and just the nature of the sport and the limited participants, I think it can be ran safely. And then one of the things that we would look to do as well is it's more of an adult tournament, right? So it's not a bunch of youth where they're running around playing tag and things like that. So it is adult, and it will be very controlled.
Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome. Thanks, Matt.
Liz, I just have one quick question of Fred, if I can.
Yes,
Fred, a lot of times, and again, using softball tournaments as an example,
Sure.
There's usually a place where people buy stuff. Do you guys have any sort of sales where you might have more than a few people congregating at one time?
In the past, we have had something very similar of that, but this year we wanted to take the measure to ensure that people didn't have that high touch area. So we wouldn't look to do any concessions. We would just advise participants to bring their own beverages and snacks.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Can I just ask a completely hypothetical question?
Sure. Ahead,
what happens just in the hypothetical that, a bunch of people are at Cash Park and they see you guys pitching horseshoes and go, hey, something's going on, and all of a sudden 20 people come over. Do you guys, you're probably not going to have any signage or anything, but are you comfortable being like, hey, listen, this is our event. This is our, we need to keep this at a certain size. So I'm sorry, but you can't watch.
Sure. So one of the unique things about being not only just any horseshoe tournament, but as a state sanctioned tournament, so it's one of the qualifiers for state, is that it does require the participation area to be fenced in. So Mead Park does have a fenced in area on 2 sides, and then we actually put up a temporary fence in between the other sides, so lengthwise. So nobody can be close to the participants. And I wish, as much as I love horseshoes, I wish it was the rage when you hear playing of a horseshoe and a ringer that more people did come to the fence and say, hey, what are these guys doing? Because we do get young kids that come up there and they, they're curious. We're right next to Mead Park, and in the past, I have a handful of kids horseshoes, and I invite them to throw and teach them. And I love the sport and I want to keep it around as long as I can. So I wish it was the rage, Sean, that people crowded it, but it's just not.
I can't tell you the amount of crazy stuff I've watched sports wise in the last few months just to get that excitement. So yeah, just out of curiosity.
Yeah. No, great question.
Yeah, kids play cornhole, real men play horseshoes.
Right? That's right.
Don't let the cornhole league organizers hear they say that.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Hey, Liz, are you looking for a motion on this?
I just wanted to make one comment on it too, or a question on it. I'm wondering, I've been watching the COVID numbers for Portage County, and yesterday it was 142, today it's 147. What happens, this is July 1st, and this tournament is the 18th and 19th. how comfortable are we to say, go ahead with this 2.5 weeks in advance, when we don't know what's going to be happening with the numbers? I really appreciate, Fred, everything that you've done to try to assure that this is safely run. Sure. It still concerns me if we as a park board are condoning or approving, sanctioning something, a group of people to get together here at Stevens Point. So can the plug be pulled on it if the numbers continue to rise at the rate that they're going? I don't know, maybe that's a question for Dan.
Well, I think if I answer it, we do, as the board probably remembers, we do allow gatherings, lodge rentals with the 50 number, and we've given the CDC guidelines. We do the extra cleaning. In this situation, they're bringing their own equipment. I think, to get to your question, Chair McDonald, if an order would come out that would further restrict, and anything that this group was doing would be outside those boundaries, yeah, my office. So, for example, let's say they came out and said it was now a 10-person gathering. By virtue, then we would say no more.
Okay.
But with that said, to get to you talked about the numbers. Let's say the numbers are 180 or something in a couple weeks. If the executive order 1 is still in place, if this motion would pass, or if a motion's made here that allows this tournament to go forward, my office then would not restrict them. Essentially, we tell them you're at 50. We'd given the CDC guidelines, and then it would be on Fred as the tournament organizer to make sure that they're making good choices at the park.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, where are we? Do we have a motion?
If I may, Chair,
Yes.
my sole concern is the one that Sean voiced. If Fred did observe people standing just a couple feet apart and talking with each other, I kind of would look for a prod to be given.
Sure, I would be comfortable with that, David. I would be comfortable. I'm the tournament director, and people know that tournament rules are to be respected, and they do realize that we are in an epidemic with the coronavirus. So I think they would be okay hearing that. I think even us in our own daily lives could probably use a little bit of a prod once in a while with different things that we partake in. So I don't think anyone would be offended, and I would certainly feel comfortable telling people that that they would need to social distance, and I would be okay giving that prod or that reminder. So
thank you.
There is no motion. There is no motion, Chair.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
That was
Chair,
John
I'll make a
McConaughey.
motion.
Yes. What is
John,
your motion, John?
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to accept the Horseshoe tournament for July 18th and 19th following the 50-person rule, with the understanding that if the COVID numbers do change or we do get any advice from the Health and Human Services to limit the numbers, Dan can make that decision at that time. But otherwise, that would be what I would accept, a 50 maximum number.
Okay. Sean seconded it, correct? Okay, great. There's been a motion and a second to approve the tournament, the Horseshoe tournament for July 18th and 19th with following the CDC guidelines with a max of 50 people. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Good luck with it, Fred, and good luck to you.
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank all of you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 6, special events within Stevens Point Park facilities and properties. It's Dan's turn again.
Yeah, this is similar to, this is set up similar to the way that the first item that we just discussed is. So my office, those of you that may not be familiar, reoccurring special events through the park system. So I'm going to use things like Art in the Park, the JDRF Run Walk, anything that's come through the Park Commission, been approved. If the event does not change, they're now approved through my office. All new special events come before the Park Commission for approval. Then when they're reoccurring and there's nothing changed, that's how they've worked in our process and our policy. So one of the things that my office has been getting quite a bit about now has been And to be frank with it, is we're getting a lot of, again, creative ideas. That's the best way I can phrase it. Where, say, a run walk might say, we're going to spread people out. We're going to have heats. I'll compare it to like a track meet where maybe, 20 people are going to take off. Then we're going to invite another group and they're going to take off. Or we're going to try to phase a couple areas in a park space and have people not basically commingle. Similar questions have come up about the Levitt Amp series. So there's been some discussions in the background saying, if we went from a high COVID activity level to a medium COVID activity level, there's been some discussions with the health department about would they be permitted to be outdoors in the park, and would they have guidance on that? And there's been a couple different discussions about, well, if there was no concessions and they could social distance, that the health department may have some guidance, or may be able to say that if we were in a low COVID activity level or a medium, they maybe would allow some of those things. Those are preliminary discussions. The root of this discussion, what I'm asking for the park commission, is we sent out a letter. Commissioner Kirsch can speak to this as well, but we sent an email out to everyone that has put any paperwork in, who's run an event or plans to run one. And my office said, we want you to know where we're at in this process. Right now, mass gatherings have been limited to 50 people, and that's what we've been using for a guideline. And we told them the information saying, okay, who's making these decisions up? We stated that these are things that have been decided through the park commission. The city council has endorsed them via the consent agenda. And unless something changes at the advisory level from our health department, something major happens in the COVID environment via the state or federal government, as well as endorsed here locally by our council and things, that's the progress we're moving forward with. What that's leading to a little bit, though, is some of these larger events, and I'm going to use Levitt as one example, as well as a couple run walks, things that are later in the fall, has been some communication. And the organizers are being very proactive. So I got to salute them in terms of what they're doing, but they're having some discussions with like the health department, for example, to say, if we do this, this, and this, would you allow it? And as we know with COVID, if you go community to community, things are different. If you look at health department to the health department, there's certain things that are different. It's not a black and white environment. It's just not. It's, there's a lot of things that factor into it. So what I'm asking for from the park commission essentially is, are you all comfortable, and are we comfortable continuing to say 50 people is where we're at because of Executive Order 1? And if you're over that in any way, shape, or form or capacity, whether we try to spread people out in certain capacities, we're going to stay in compliance with that order number 1? Or would you like my office to try to be more, I guess, involved with like the health department and trying to allow more alterations to be made? And again, I'm going to talk to that. We do have what we do for one special event. It needs to be consistent because we do have quite a few events that go on. I will tell you that a number of events have canceled. When they got that literature as well as the weeks before, there is a good deal of them that have said, we're not doing it. But we do still have a handful that are hopeful and optimistic, and that's fantastic. But we want to be consistent through my office that we're letting them plan and that they know what's happening. So that's before this new event that's on later in the agenda. I wanted to just allow the commission to give me some feedback and potentially a motion that says, yes, we're comfortable with that direction until something changes, or we'd like you to do something else.
Okay, Wayne.
I guess, Dan, we just, I think, set a precedence with the tournament discussion, to be quite honest. At the end of the day, I don't know that anybody on this call is an epidemiologist or an infectious disease expert. So I think, much like we did in terms of taking and providing you guidance on the tournament play, I think we have to listen to the county health official and follow those guidelines until they change. So from my lens, I don't know that there needs to be a lot of debate, because we've already in a lot of ways set the precedence by at this point staying the course with the county health guidelines.
Yeah, and I would just add that people will gather up. Even if you have a creative plan, it's gonna happen. So I mean, you're fooling yourself if you're thinking you're gonna have an event with 150 people and it's gonna not gather together. So I would add that in.
Any other comments?
I agree that that sticking with the 50, both for consistency and health. I would go further and say that distinguishing between the different types of activities. So the only thing where I can envisage really enforcing people sort of staying in particular places is a spectator type situation, because anything that's more of either a social or athletic, I think, maybe it's similar to what Matt was just saying, that it's hard to imagine that, enough kind of discipline or self-discipline is going to be exercised for people to be distanced. So, yeah.
Matt, did you have another comment, or are you just resting your elbow? Okay. 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 Any other comments? To me, Dan, it sounds like you and staff are doing what you need to do on this with sticking with the 50 people limit and following the CDC guidelines. I mean, I think any group is going to say, well, we won't have everybody come at the same time, or we'll do this, or we'll do that. Everybody wants to hold their events, but realistically, I think you just need to hang tough with it and do what you're doing. But
great, and ultimately that was all I wanted to reaffirm here, because we're a couple more months into it. So I don't necessarily need a motion to that front. Then, if everyone's consistent, I just want to make sure I shared what we were doing, and if there was something different, then I would have asked for it in motion format.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I have a question. I guess this might be for director. So if event is canceled, do they still have it's approved every year? Like it's just canceled this year because of COVID, or do they have to come back and ask for permission again next year?
If it's what our permit states essentially is if it's a new event, a returning event, or a returning event with changes. And the two categories that ultimately end up here are returning events with changes that are significant and new events. But a returning event would still be approved next year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, item number 7. This is a special event that was requested, the O'Keefe Relief Benefit Fund at Iverson Park for August 23rd. Again, you had quite a bit of information in your agenda notes. And maybe we could just get a summary on that, Dan.
New event being asked to have permission for the open air shelters in Iverson Park, the large one at the bottom of the hill near the center of the park, the one by the ball fields. Those two facilities are not reservable under any normal standard circumstance. They actually have signs to the contrary. They're first come, first serve. This event is asking to use those for their event. They will be more than 50 people. Their attendance estimate states no more than 50 at one time. And they've got a map that shows that they'd like to route people through the park. However, it does state on here they would like to have potentially games that would obviously keep people staying around. So they're asking for ultimately trash removal is what the city would provide, as well as the facility. It would go against our current policy on those shelters, and it would attract more than 50 people.
Okay, discussion. Okay, anybody?
Chair, Dan?
Yes.
I have a question. You said, will it attract more than 50? Is that what you said, Dan?
Yes, they list.
But they're stating less than 50.
They're saying no more than 50 at one time, but they have told us it will attract. They anticipate more than 50 people coming to it.
So if this is not reservable, do we really have a way to prevent them from doing this? Do they have to get permission from the board?
Essentially, organized. This really gets to the root of, say, because this comes up a lot. Organized, advertised things in the parks need a permit. So, for example, if somebody informally takes, I'm going to use like a yoga, for example, because you might see this once in a while. Say a group of 5, maybe from a yoga studio, informally they show up, they have yoga. That's not a problem. It's a public space. That's great. If there's an advertising that says yoga in Iverson Park, we're charging $100 per participant, that's an organized activity that would require a permit, right? Similar to this. If this says we're fundraising in Iverson Park, essentially that goes to our ordinance about peddling, and the exact language I can pull for you, but distributing information and flyers and a cause that's not permitted in the park. So that's why when they came to talk to us, we said special event is what this falls into, and without a permit, it would not be a permitted activity.
I guess I'm sorry.
Was this Wayne?
I guess my question is the 50-person rule. I'm sorry, the 50-person rule. If they're over it, then I would suggest we not approve it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wayne.
I guess if I could actually I follow up to John, I think the confusion I'm concerned about with a group like this is they think it's 50 people plus whomever's there to organize. So that 50 is 50 total, including the people that are there running the games and manning. And I guess just from a space standpoint, that's an uncontrollable space that's going to invite more than 50 people the minute they start. So I have really, I think the way that I read that permit, the request, I wonder if I have concerns that they're thinking that they could have 50 guests plus whomever else is there. And that's not the case at all. But that's an uncontrollable space that is just begging for trouble from a context standpoint. So yeah. I've got concerns about this one on a couple of different levels.
Okay. Other comments? Mike, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like for what they're trying to do, there might be better places to hold that than that lodge building. They might be better off on a ball field or something that you can spread people out farther. But I'm not comfortable if there's going to be more than 50 people there.
I have some reservations myself regarding allowing someone on a weekend in a very popular park to reserve some buildings that we normally do not reserve. That's a concern I have, as well as the number of people. So.
Seems like this is an event that is bringing people together, not, right? So, you know, one team on another team's softball game, you know, you have people watching the game from the bleachers, and hopefully they're observing distancing there. But you know, this is bringing people together. It's just the kind of thing that can cause real problems. You know, whether it's in a closed space or or even with an outdoor element.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion? Oh wait, Mike.
Yeah, I'll be the bad guy. I'll make the motion to deny it.
Okay.
I'll second
it.
Okay. Who was did Wayne second that, or John? Did you both?
I think Wayne did.
Okay, Wayne was the second on it. Okay, moved and seconded to deny the O'Keefe Relief Benefit Fund event. All those in favor signify by saying, in favor of it not being held, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, unanimously disapproved. All right, thank you. Number 8, approval of the amendment to the cell phone antenna lease agreement for Gerke Park. Again, that was noted in your agenda item or in your agenda notes. And any discussion on it?
Chair, if I can, I can lead in a little bit of information on this.
That would be great.
So again, I think there's probably quite a few new faces on the board since this cell tower was put in Gerke Park. So the original agreement dates back to 2001, and this cell tower is currently operational. It's on the south side of the west end, so basically coming from my office heading towards the stadium. It's on the south side of the bleachers, and it's on a light pole. So we've got poles, the lights that feed the stadium is where that tower is installed, as well as they actually, at that time when the Park Commission approved it and the city approved it, they built onto the restroom building. So there's a room on the back south end of that building that they also operate out of. What the agreement that was approved by the Common Council and Park Commission in 2001 and that we are currently operating underneath was an auto renewing agreement that carries us through 2026. There's a monthly rent that comes in. That rent essentially is used for the park. So that's one of the things that helps with turf. It helps with other projects. That's how that agreement came to be. So we are currently in the last auto renewal term. Underneath the original agreement, it talks through, and this was in, if you recall, when this first came up a few months ago. One piece of the agreement that the city agreed to in 2001 is improvements. During the lease term, U.S. Cellular may at its expense make improvements to add such equipment, including microwave antennas, on the premises as it deems necessary from time to time. That clause requires them to go through an approval process, which is what they just completed. That approval process meaning that they can't overload the tower. They have to make sure that it meets all those local and zoning requirements, that they're underneath their appropriate permit. So what happened there is they actually provided the city an escrow account in which SEH, an independent reviewing and engineering firm, looked through. That's why the recommendation letter is in the packet, states that the pole now is max loaded. So essentially what it would mean is if they come with any future improvements, there would need to be something about the light pole or reinforcement of the base and another structural review, which is concurrent and in agreement with the existing lease agreement. And essentially what they're asking for at this point is to upgrade that equipment to the latest technology that they have in the cell tower industry. And what is included in that amendment is obviously a change in the lease terms in terms of compensation because of the change in the larger load on the pole. At this point, what they have submitted is in compliance with our current agreement on file. They also are regulated underneath the FCC, and they are seeking approval. And they've met all of the prerequisites that we currently have on file, either agreement-wise or from a regulatory standpoint, which is why they're being recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you, Dan. David.
I move approval of the amendment to the agreement for the improvement, I guess.
All right, thank you.
I'll second that.
It was John O'Connor, second. All right, thank you.
I'd like to speak, please.
Are you Deb?
I
Yes.
am Deb, and I've been waiting for this moment.
Okay, Deb, would you state your name and address, please?
Sure, my name is Deborah Wolf, 2117 Falcons Cove, Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you.
I am very shocked that there's no discussion on this matter. First of all, you've all been, everyone pictured here, are you the board members? I know Sue. Hello, Sue.
Yes, well, I think almost everyone is.
Okay, is everybody afraid to speak up or what? I mean, has anybody read any of these documents I've provided all of you? I have been studying with GeoVital Institute for almost 3 years, and they do EMF radiation remediation, and that is protecting people's homes from harmful radiation coming from cell towers, as well as other issues, geothermal, etc., electric. I'm very against rushing this through today, and I'm wondering what the urgency is, and I'm wondering how many of you can raise your hands to say that you have read the emails and the attachments that I have sent.
I know Dan did provide that to us.
Well, I'm glad to see so many
Yeah.
hands, but
And
are
we
there
did
any
read much of it.
questions? There must be a few questions. There's a lot to this. This isn't just simple, let's put on some new little boxes. This is called immense upgrade in radiation frequency. This happens to be a $500 radiation meter right now off of the pole over there from 4G, I believe. We are getting 6 to 8 gigahertz of radiation sitting under that pole on the bleachers. The FCC's only health safety test was done in 1996. They have not upgraded that. They are in court being sued by 2 reputable organizations because they are demanding some upgrades to this. Now, US is not the first to bring out 5G. And if anybody goes on and sees what's going on in Europe, France right now is having huge protests against 5G, and many, many people are getting sick. And that is my main premise here, okay? It's the children, especially, their brains are not formed yet. They are susceptible up to 10 times more radiation than adults, okay? And what is right by Gerke? What do we have? Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Well, you know, I did some reading online too, and one thing I found out that the 4G is non-directional, and in other words, it's spread out. The 5G is directional. So when you're actually using your cell phone, you will get more of the signal, the radiation. A key would be to not give your kids a cell phone to carry around at a young age. They'd be a lot less exposed to 5G.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
However, as I mentioned, the difference in frequency, right now we are at 6 to 8 gigahertz. It's going to jump to 28. It starts, and it can go up to high as over 60 gigahertz, which messes with our oxygen, our DNA, every part of our body. This is a man-made radiation. It's not something natural that we've evolved to, and it's coming quick. And I really implore you to form a subcommittee like was done in 2001 to study this further and get some educated people. I would definitely volunteer my time instead of charge you a fortune. I'm studying to be a building biologist. Now, my ploy here, do I have a ploy? I mean, by defeating this, I won't have a job. By bringing this in, I will have a lot of work because the children especially need protection. Could I please implore you to form a subcommittee and put this on hold?
I just wanted to add, Deb, I read what you sent, and I read some things on the internet also. And the reason I didn't bring up any discussion is I'm not an expert, and that the fact that I looked at the internet for 10 minutes doesn't make me an expert. And there's a lot of different conflicting information out there from both reputable and whatever fake news websites. There's a lot of information, and a lot of it tells you one thing tells the other thing. So for me to, for us to sit here and try to debate the safety of it, I think we're not the group to do that. But I appreciate,
in lieu of all the scientific proof out there against it, how can you jump into this? How can you not look into it more? I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
Chair.
You know, for your ignorance, you cannot pass something like this. Have you notified all the people in the neighborhood?
Deb,
look at how many people have made this Zoom meeting. It's pretty difficult to tell people how to get to this. And I thought you were going to read some emails, Dan. I know people sent some emails in.
Chair.
Yes.
So Chair, Deb has asked a question to me, so I'll just respond.
Yes.
The information that was sent to me was forwarded to the committee per the direction, asking for one email correspondence with the details. So park commissioners did receive what I received from Deb. I did not receive any additional emails. I just want to reiterate that the motion on the floor is to approve the cell tower agreement amendment as proposed. So that is the motion.
Holy crap. Can't we have some more discussion about this?
You know, Deb, this might not be, I don't think this is the right venue. I don't think
this is totally the right venue. Do you think it's easy to take them down once they're up? Do we have 5 more years on that contract? And by that time, kids are going to have cancer. Okay.
This is a contract that has been in effect since
wait a minute.
2001.
First of all, can I go back to Mike's comment? This was in your original agenda item packet, and it's a detailed description of the antenna going off. And they are called array antennas. So Mike, you had that completely opposite. The array says it all. And they are going to be faced in a 360, you know, just like they are now, however, with a high, more intense radiation. How can you pass this knowing all these facts or look into them more? You have not had the time to search this. I've been studying this for 3 years, and I'm very ashamed to, you know, say that you're our council members. It's going to be on your conscience, and it's unconscionable what you are about to do.
Deb, we are not the city council.
I would like you to make public all the emails I sent, please.
They are public. They're
and I know people wrote in other emails, so I'm very disappointed those aren't available.
Deb, we are not the city.
Don't you have anything to say? You've had cancer. You're a scientist. You taught science. I am not making any of this up. Okay, and I'm done. I'm done with you. Thank you for listening to me, and I wish you'd take this on better. This is incredible. Incredible. Oh my God.
Okay. Well, she has some concerns, but this is not really the appropriate venue to discuss them. I mean, we're not scientists. We don't have the kind of background. I think all of us have looked at the internet at some of the information that's been available.
Well, if I can just say, I mean, that was sort of my, I mean, I have no scientific background other than being, you know, a ham radio operator. So my first instinct as a library person, as a researcher, is to look at the American Cancer Society, look at Mayo Clinic site, look at Sloan Kettering had a good site on it. People who know what they're talking about. So that's why I'm comfortable at this point. But to each our own, I guess, where we're researching on the internet.
Yeah,
I would associate myself with John's remarks in terms of where the real authority on the health danger is. But I don't think the point is that we're not the group to discuss it. We are discussing it. It's the difference between someone who wants a discussion versus someone who wants an outcome, just only wants support for their position. And if I can say, that's, that distinction between wanting discussion and wanting a certain outcome is one that we deal with in the council a lot also.
Oh, thank you, David. That's a good distinction. And I think it probably is a subject that could lead to a committee or something, but not a subcommittee of the Parks Department. That's not the appropriate place for it. So anyway, any other further discussion?
Commissioner Freckman has his hand up.
Yes, Bob.
I think one of the key matters in this is we're only hearing one side. I think that we would be required, if we were going to go against the contract, to have somebody present the alternative side. So I think it would be inappropriate for us to do anything that interferes with the contract that's enforced.
Thank you, Bob.
Well said.
Okay. Any other comments before we continue?
I think Sue has her hand up.
Sue, unmute yourself. There we go.
Mute. There. Okay. Yes, but Bob, weren't you and Mike on a committee way back in the earlier years to look into this?
Yes. So far back, I hardly remember it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do have some concerns about this, and like I said, why is it that we are feeling like we're not the people? If we go ahead and approve this, then they're going to go ahead and put the cell tower up. But if we put it to another committee, who would be the other committee? Who were you thinking of, Liz? That you thought that we were not, that we as the park board commissioners were not the people to do this. Who were you thinking of that might?
So this is a contract. The cell tower has been there since 2001. It's been there for a long time. And there's like 5 or 6 years left on this contract. So it's not a lengthy, it's just an amendment to the current contract. It's not renegotiating the contract or anything. So we do have the contract already in place, and it's just all they're doing is upgrading their tower, upgrading their capacity there. And I think that if Ms. Wolf wants to pursue it, she probably should be talking to the mayor or to the city council to have someone with scientific background to look into it, and as Bob Freckman mentioned, get both sides of the issue. Because our issue today is very narrow. Ours is just approving an amendment to the lease on the cell tower. That's all we're doing today. And it's not whether we should have the cell tower there or not. That was discussed or decided back in 2001. So perhaps she could be redirected to contact the city council or the mayor if she wants to look into that further.
I mean, I want to be careful to accept the premise that this is a really, a two-sided debate, because you can contest anything. I mean, I look at it sort of similar to, the overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change is clear, and I think this is a vocal segment of opinion that is out of line with the kind of sources that Sean looked up. The authoritative professional health and medical science organizations do not share this sense of the danger.
Okay, good comments, David. Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion, or can we proceed with the vote on this? Okay.
There was a motion, right?
Yes, there was a motion and a second.
Okay. I could read the motion if you'd like, Chair.
Sure.
Motion on the floor is is approval of the cell tower agreement as presented.
Okay, and I believe it was seconded also, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Director's report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So what I wanted to start with, and I've had this on the last meeting as well, is I want to give just a slight COVID update in terms of the department operations. We are open Monday through Friday to the public. Right now, we're getting a lot of calls. We do have a lot of traffic in terms of key checkouts for the lodge rentals that we have, as well as people with special events and other requests that we have within the park system. Phones have been very active. So we are open 7:30 to 3:30, answering calls, taking care of that. We do have cleaning protocol in place in terms of our lobby areas, our restrooms, our touchable surfaces between employees. The staff is wearing cloth coverings and masks when we're within 6 feet of each other, as well as when we're in vehicles. And that's kind of the guidance we've been using, is anytime, even if we're out necessarily even in public, or if we're out in the parks, which is obviously a little less risk, but when we're within 6 feet, we have taken those precautions to try and minimize those exposures as much as possible. The mayor's office did issue a mask mandate for visitors to public offices. So when you enter or you come to the rec center, you'll notice the mask. There's a sign at the door that says, please wear a mask, or it's mandated. We do have masks at our counter as well. So that way, if somebody comes in, they have business, or they need to get a key and they don't have a mask, we are allowing them to take one. So that way we've got that protocol being followed. Our rec center meeting room and gymnasium were not available for rent because we were working with the Boys and Girls Club. They are using the gym all day because of the 50-person maximum they're working through with their facility. We are going to, beginning today, July 1st, open that facility up, both of those rooms and the gym, for evening and weekend rentals. And we've worked out a cleaning protocol that they'll turn it over to us clean. And then if we do rent it that night, we'll clean it in the morning before they get there. Again, limiting that cross exposure between the two areas. Next month, I will bring to you some financial impacts on the park system in terms of cancellations for things like lodge rentals. I'd like to show the committee kind of where we were impacted, because we did lose a primary month with May, as well as many in June and July, and we even have more that are canceling now as the uptick is gone. So I'd like to show that to the committee so you see it before we hit budgeting time, some of those financial impacts directly related to the park system. So I will have that for you. One thing that I didn't have here underneath the administration tab is that we did get notification of an AED award through a grant program with the St. Michael's Foundation. So our department was awarded an AED that will go out to Gerke Park for the spring and the fall season. So when we have athletic events there, as well as a good portion of the summer. In the winter, because nothing's going on at Gerke, we're going to transition that to the winter sports area. So it's another good resource if we would have a case of emergency at that location. And then we anticipate using it for Riverfront Rendezvous for the 3 days as well. So it's an extra AED that we didn't have before. We actually used to take one from our lobby facility. So we would have our lobby open for those times and use it some of those locations. So this will allow us to have it designated for that area. So tremendous partner in St. Michael's Foundation. We were very fortunate to get that grant award. We do have a, yeah.
Dan, AED is a defibrillator. I can't even say it. Okay.
Yeah.
Defibrillator. Defibrillator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Correct.
Is there one at the Willett?
Yeah, there is a mobile unit essentially, and the trainers that come have one as well. So we have one more here that we use that we've transitioned. So we'll be placing the cabinets and getting them out in those public viewable spaces here soon. So that was part of this grant process that we worked at. We do anticipate purchasing one more because we do want the Will to be covered too on a permanent basis.
Right.
We do have a card group that plays here at the rec center. They used to play 2 days a week, and we put some protocol in place requiring masks, washing hands, sanitizing the area, sanitizing cards, and that group has began on a limited basis on Friday afternoons. They were very, very grateful that we were able to put some protocol in to allow them into that space. On the forestry side, we were cutting tree grates downtown in spots where trees were growing into the grates. So we've been doing a lot of Facebook posts around the forestry division. They've been very active, and there's a lot of great knowledge base out of our forestry operations in terms of the different varieties of trees, as well as some of their operations. So if you've liked our Facebook page, you'll see quite a bit of great publication coming out of Todd and his folks. We're going to continue to try to push some of that good news that we do have coming. I think we just referenced one of the Japanese tree lilacs. We took some photos that was on there, I think, today. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, please do. We did clear the brush and undergrowth along the new Green Circle Trail route behind in Buchel Park, as well as into the NCCT property. We are just waiting on a contractor who has to remove a couple of white pine underneath the power line. When that comes out, we have a walk scheduled with the contractor who will install the actual trail in about a week and a half. And then we intend to get the date out of them where we'll actually be able to put that trail down. So we believe the route we've gone, we will not need any sort of boardwalk, maybe one small culvert potentially. We were able to save pretty much anything large for tree. There was really mostly fallen over timber and some undergrowth stuff that we took out. So actually Commissioner Freckman walked parts of it with us one day where we marked a few trees as well. So worked out really nice. We're looking forward to getting that in. We do have an intern, I shouldn't say an intern, but a seasonal employee helping with the tree memorial programming, cataloging, and creating a GIS database, so that our intent is to hopefully be able to view from a GIS map who the tree is for. So if people would like to view or go on and see it on a map, they can do that. So the forestry folks are working through that process. We've been monitoring closely the TDS fiber install. So we didn't run into a couple instances where tree roots were disturbed with the install of the TDS equipment. We did have a rather large meeting out there about a week ago on Monday, and we talked through our procedures that we allow and policies when you're working within the drip line of the tree. And we were able to actually, with Todd's leading efforts, work through a process that we're going to be involved in the front end where we can help locate some of the boxes, really the junction boxes, whether they're surface mount or above ground. So rather than maybe in certain instances being on a property boundary, but right tight to a tree, a beautiful mature tree, that we can slide it over and they can utilize the right of way to maybe what they call a drop, run the service in the future. So we had a couple instances where we did have some tree roots disturbed and damaged, and there was some financial penalties that were assessed in those instances, but we've worked it out now. We're working on the front end to go ahead and put in some protocols and be able to hopefully avoid those conflicts in the future, because we do have, as we know, one of the best tree canopies around. We want to protect that at all costs. So TDS has been a great partner working with us on that, and I think we've arrived at a good solution to work forward. We've been performing some ash tree injections with some city equipment. So we actually have some applicators on the city staff that's been working on that process now too, in the parks as well as the right-of-way areas, in addition to the contracted services that we do. And they've been aerating and seeding some turf areas and playing fields here as we were getting ready for the athletics to start in June. On the pool side, we will be draining that. It's been partially drained already. We'll be finishing it here on Monday. The annual winterizing will be taking place sooner with Badger swim pools. We did test out the new capital equipment that we put in for filters. We had really, really good luck with that. So we're really excited, hopefully, about next year. We think that our pool should really run smoothly. Those upgrades seem to work well. Obviously, we didn't get to run them for a full season, but we'll winterize and be ready for next year. We're developing and beginning an opening plan for the KB Willett. We anticipate a very similar process of how we presented the pool to the committee at a future meeting, probably as early as August, about the Willett Arena. And that one's a little different because spectators play a role. So we're working with the health departments, our plan, as well as the athletic directors and the sports organizers, trying to get an early read, which is going to be hard, but on what high school and college athletics may look like, what their guidance is going to be. And we anticipate coming here and talking about what our options are as early as next month. The Willett flooring project is out for bid. We are going to be replacing some of the rubber flooring that's quite aged on the lower level. We hope to have that bid recommendation or award to you as well in August. On the park side, we installed a new stone border around the Iverson Park planter. So if you're coming along Clark Street, you'll be able to see a beautiful planter up along the edge. That was an old kind of rotted timber, and with the Friends of Iverson Park, one of our staff members is a really handy, Craig is really handy with stonework. So he actually masoned that himself here with a seasonal. It looks really great if you get a chance to take a look. Our large irrigation project at Piffner Park is now complete. We're just trying to grow in the grass, and without the heavy load on the park, we anticipate that grass will grow rather quickly. We did have a crack in the water reservoir for the McLaughlin Fountain. We're working to address that. We hope to have that filled very soon. We've hired a contractor for the Iverson Park Beach House roof. That was another capital project we have. And the new Northward Pedal and Paddle is going to be open this weekend. They anticipate having some things going out of the park this weekend already. So we're working with them to be able to facilitate getting that roof on and not hurting any of their equipment. And then lastly, the Riverfront Arts Center is making a comeback this week. So we'll be starting for the Visions exhibit, and it's modified a little bit in terms of our hours. Friday and Saturdays is really how it's going to be open right now. Currently, putting social distancing practices in place, way severely limiting how many people will be coming through the doors at one time. But we're going to open those doors up, and we've got some artists that are really excited to be a part of it. So very busy, even given a lot that's going on with COVID, but the staff has really been hitting the ground running, and embracing trying to be as safe as possible, as well as trying to get everything done that we normally do.
I have a question, Dan.
That's John. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Hello. With the pool closed, are our numbers increased at Mead, Buchholz, and Iverson? Are you witnessing any problems in those areas?
We have not witnessed any reported problems. On warm days, those facilities were always very, very busy. But I would say it's probably been more constant than maybe other years. But it's hard to quantify it because when it's really hot, it's busy. And that's been pretty. From my understanding, last summer I was not here all summer. But my understanding is that both those locations have been pretty, especially Iverson, like that when it's been really hot in the past as well.
And one other thing you mentioned, the Willet. What about football? Any idea what we're going to be looking at here in a month or so?
That's part of that same discussion. So what we've done so far is we sent emails saying, please get us your schedules as you know it. And we're trying to organize a Zoom meeting that we can get together and say, what are you hearing? We want to partner that together, that then come up with a social distancing plan and a numbers plan that we can come forward with to say, here's what we believe we can do or not do. And concessions plays a role. Concessions is a large input in finances for us for the Willet and the Gerke Stadium. We take in quite a bit of money through concessions. And as we know, a lot of things in a lot of areas have closed concessions. So there'll be some financial projections we'll be making to the committee as well. We'll try to paint as good a picture we can given the circumstances that we have.
Thank you.
Sue's got a question.
Yes. Did I demute myself now? Okay.
You're on mute right now, Sue. You just clicked it again. We can't hear you, Sue. Sue, you're still, there you go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, now you can hear me. Okay. I just was going to say that Audubon members also, just within the last couple of weeks, did the plantings at Kushikushki Park, and then also the dog park. We did the signage and the area around, and we put in new plants and did the area around the sign. So that's for Audubon. Yeah.
I have a comment too. Just at Piffner Park, the Cultural Commons is coming along. There's some sculptures added. The Russian bell was installed last month, and it looks like they're about to pour concrete to connect the sidewalk up to the kind of the road and entry over there by the bank parking lot. So,
and I apologize. Thanks, Alder Zerzu. I actually did have a note here that I overlooked. So yeah, the Cultural Commons is coming along great. The bell is hung. Alder Zerzu kind of summarized the others. I do want to share with the committee that we have pulled a water test on the rain garden south of the Cultural Commons. And ultimately, we just got an inquiry from a resident just saying, hey, could you take a look at this for us? So the preliminary right now is what we're doing is we're testing for, we worked with UWSP's water lab department, and they gave us a recommendation that said, we think it might be a biofilm is what they said, but why don't you go ahead and test what they call polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So we're pulling a test and just checking it because of an inquiry. If something comes out of that, we'll definitely have some more information in front of the committee here probably next month. But essentially, there's a rain garden just south of it, and we are just doing our due diligence due to a report on that. So I'll have more if that develops further.
Dan, I have a question regarding the cultural commons as well. With that new sculpture down there, it looks like I mean, it's really nice, but it looks like it's the kind of thing that just might invite some vandalism or people to get into it. And I'm wondering the same with the bell. Has there been any thought to put maybe a minimal amount of either lighting or action or motion activated lighting in there?
Lighting has not been discussed to my knowledge. All I'm aware of that has been discussed is we are looking at installing fiber to the Riverfront Arts Center, which would lend itself to maybe mount a camera on the roof of that building looking at that facility. That's the most security measures I have been involved with.
Sure.
I wasn't here when the design part, though. Their group may have talked about lighting early on, but recently I've not heard any additional lighting conversations.
Yeah, I'd like to minimize lighting, but when you look at potential for vandalism, which does happen down there sometimes, it might not be bad to add a little bit. Any other questions for Dan, the director? Okay. If not, a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, it's moved, and I'm sure everyone seconds it. All in favor?
I made it back for the end.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, everybody.
About dead.
Thank you,
All right.
thank you. Good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Good night.
Nice to see you.
Sorry,
soon,
missed the end,
Liz.
Dan.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.